Hey, School Zone. Matt coming at you from Stephenville, Texas. And I'm talking to another Texan today out of the Irving area, actually. Tiffany Riley of the Laughter League. Tiffany and I ran into each other at Texas PTA here several weeks ago. I really enjoyed getting a chance to see some of the stuff that they were doing as they were sharing with volunteers that were in attendance from around Texas, and was excited to get her on the show. So Tiffany, thanks for joining us in the School Zone.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
So give us some background. What has you in the school space? How long have you been here? Did your previous life look like? Give us a little background on you.
Actually, I went to acting school. I went to NYU and got a degree in acting, and looking for a career in the entertainment business, I fell in love with the circus, and ultimately took my acting and my passion for circus and became, wait for it, a clown. Which, as you may or may not know, the word clown has some positives and some negatives associated with it. So I'll focus on the positives, which is that I found that being a clown was a way for me to use all the skills that I had learned in life, like dancing, singing, playing a musical instrument, juggling, acting ridiculous, doing improvisation, and bring them into one place, the clown world and the circus. And so I sort of never looked back from that. And in order to make that a career, as with anything in the entertainment business, you have to find all the ways that you can make a living at that thing that you want to do. My partner and my husband and my partner in performance and in life, I met through clowning, and we traveled and performed with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, with the Big Apple Circus out of New York, and with a circus called the Lone Star Circus out of Dallas. Toured a lot. He was the director of the Ringling Brothers Clown College for a few years, and we trained all the clowns for the greatest show on earth. And so we had a big touring life, lived in New York and all that stuff. And then we had kids, and we decided that we wanted to move closer to my folks who lived in Texas. And so we did that. It wasn't too long after 9/11. It was very difficult to make it as a variety entertainer in New York after that thing that happened that was awful. So we said, let's head down to Texas. And so we had done for Ringling, we had done some events, some special events, doing Science of the Circus shows at like museums and stuff. And so when my kids started going to school, I said, there's a lack of fun curriculum for the science. That was how it started. Science can be a very dry subject, and we do a lot of science in the circus. We do juggling, and that's gravity, and there's rotational velocity, and there are all kinds of simple machines that we use as clowns, not to mention the circus, the high wire, and how do those things work, and what is the science involved in the flying trapeze? I mean, there is tons of science with the circus, and if the science is wrong, it can be a life or death situation. So we decided to write a show to take to the schools. And we started that I think it was 2007, started doing the Science of the Circus in the Dallas school district mostly. We partnered up with an organization called Big Thought, which is a big funding organization in the Dallas Independent School District. And so this science program we developed by taking the TEKS requirements, the things that they're going to need to learn, their main curriculum points, and paired it with our stuff, our props, our bits, our stuff we do in our show, and said, how does this fit? How does this go together? simple machines. I mean, simple machines are everywhere. So what we wrote was a show that was initially based on our material that we already had and shaped by the curriculum. The second thing that we brought to that are that we are professional entertainers. So when we go into school, we are bringing a lot of experience in being in front of an audience and performing. And so I think that the pairing of those two things allow us to be super engaging. So our whole goal is to get the kids to start learning science while they just think they're having fun. So, and I believe that program, it's still, we actually just recently revamped the program because those requirements, the state requirements, have changed in the last few years. There's been some adjustments to what they think are the most important things for the kids to learn about science. So we shifted, and we have, we kind of grow with the curriculum as needed. But I think the best testament to what we're doing is when we first started, teachers would bring us in as like a celebration for the students after the test. And over the last few years, they've started to bring us in before the STAR test or before the testing, because they feel like we are actually helping them learn the curriculum in a different way. So that's been pretty good. We do a lot of science programs each year. And this year we started something new, which I didn't really touch on too much at the PTA thing, but we were funded for a grant by the Cultural Affairs Department of the City of Dallas. We did a 10-week residency where we went to an elementary school that was low performing on tests, and we actually took their science curriculum that they were going to be tested on and applied it and taught them an hour each day. It was 10 sessions. So we did things like, one of the things they need to learn how to do is graph an experiment, to do an investigation and get some data and have an outcome. And so we applied that to learning how to juggle. So every day for 10 weeks, we did 10 minutes of teaching them to juggle scarves. So there's 20 kids, 10 minutes, juggle scarves. So they would do the data at the end. They would go, after 10 minutes, Johnny got it. He could do 3 scarves for 10 minutes, and this kid didn't. So then at the end of the 10 weeks, they've learned how to do an investigation, but they did it by learning how to juggle, which is fun. So that's been the main thing that we've been working towards this year, is trying to help, I guess infiltrate probably isn't a good word, but we like to infiltrate humor and learn humor into learning in ways that you can, that kids can, they gain self-esteem in this kind of a setting, an after school thing with juggling, and the things that we presented in the residency. So it's kind of it's an add-on to the show that we do. We also do 2 other shows. We do a math show and a reading show, which again are those specific curriculums. And I love the math show because kids in elementary school, math is very different for a kindergartner than it is for a 5th grader. So we've been able to take our show, a shell, sort of a foundation of it, and we can interchange segments of it depending on what grade we're teaching. So we do one routine that is based on basketball, but it's comedy, and it's still 2 clowns teaching it. But for the kindergartners, it's all based on addition and subtraction. But for the 5th graders, it's percentages and fractions. And so that's a really fun one too, because we can tailor the material to the specific age, almost to the exact grade for math. That's about 5. We've been doing that one about 5 years now. It's become quite popular as well. And our 3rd show is the Magic Storybook. And the Magic Storybook is fables, folk tales, and fairy tales, and what makes a story, and things like characters and setting and music, and every story has a beginning and a middle and an end, and who was Aesop, and what is an Aesop's fable. But we tell all of that through physical comedy and the circus arts. And so that not only is that a good show for schools, it's become like the really popular choice for libraries. Libraries brought us in all summer to do that show because they, of course, want to get kids to read. So I think that's the canon of comedy material that we are currently bringing to the schools.
So how do you and your husband turn it off?
Yeah. It's quite funny. It's, we are very fortunate that we are able to work together and also run a house together. I don't think it's for everybody, by the way. But yeah, we have 2 children who are both teenagers now, but one of the other main parts of what we do is we do a therapeutic clown program for hospitalized children and marginalized populations. And our daughter, whenever she would get upset, we always will use humor to distract that energy and put it towards a different direction. Oop. And so, speaking of the devil, there is my husband and partner has just come into the room.
The other half of the clown duo.
The other half of the clown duo. Yeah. Would you like to say hello? We're podcasting right now.
Hey, well, good.
How's it going?
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab a chair.
Okay. So I was just saying that our daughter, we're trying to distract her, and she was upset, and she just looked at me and went, "Mom, I know what you're doing. You're clowning me. Stop it. I want to be upset right now." So it was pretty funny because you do what you know, but yeah, we try to be real. Separate work from pleasure. I don't know. It's hard though, because clowning is such a 24/7 art form. You're always studying people and thinking of new material and trying to improve on what you're doing. So it's sort of, I don't think we're ever really off. I'll be honest with that.
So did both of you do well in school? I mean, who was the one that, has the science background or what? Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting because I was really the bookworm in school, and I actually recently even went back to school and got a master's degree. So that's kind of crazy. But when it comes down to writing this curriculum for these shows for the school, he's been the one to do that because he feels a great responsibility to, if we say we're going to teach science to these kids, we need to do that. We need to deliver that promise, even if we're doing it with a lot of fun. And so he really has taken, I think, the lion's share of reading, making sure, and like recognizing that the TEKS just changed and that we need to look at different requirements and shift the show to meet the growing needs of these kids.
So what was it that made you guys decide to kind of walk away from the life of traveling and the circus and all that to kind of doing more of your own thing, obviously, and being more home-based than probably you were much of your adult life, right? Was it just having a family, or what was it that made that transition occur?
I'm sure you might have a different answer, but I don't really think that having kids really slowed us down. We actually traveled. We still do travel a lot. We took them with us to China and to the Middle East and to Mexico doing circuses and stuff. I think for me, and probably somewhat for him, when you're a freelance entertainer, you're always looking for work. I mean, you can never rest on, well, I've got this great circus gig. It's never a sure thing, and you don't know how long it will last. So by creating something that's kind of more coming out from us, but it's bigger than us, my hope is that what we're creating is a legacy, some money, and some stability. I don't know.
I didn't hear retirement.
Probably not.
Because I don't think anyone retires anymore. I think we work, and we work until we're done working. But I also don't There's less choice, unfortunately. When you're a freelancer, there's the necessity to survive. And so we have to follow the work to a certain degree, and go to where the work is. And hopefully the other side of that coin is, while we're doing that, we're creating opportunities for ourselves that would be more like what exactly we want to do. But I think we both realized years and years ago that this career is always a compromise in between what you'd love to do as an artist and what you have to do as an artist to survive. And so we try and balance those two. And we know we can't have a perfect world. We're going to have to do some of those gigs that are a little more painful, maybe not perfect for what we really want to do, but that allows us to do those gigs that just thrill us every time we do them. So I think we've been pretty good at finding that balance.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I grew up in the Chicago area. My parents are both artists. My dad's a wood carver and can literally carve a bust of you guys that would look just like you from a picture. My mom does stained glass and painting and quilting and all that. And where the heck was I going with all that? I had a perfect tie-in.
Chicago. You said Chicago.
Oh yeah. So anyway, Illinois, and it was, they called it the pumpkin capital of the world. And every October they would have what's called the Pumpkin Festival. And out on the courthouse lawn was hundreds, if not thousands, of different entries of different pumpkins that were decorated. And anyway, I was the grand prize winner one year of the entire thing. It was called Granny on a skateboard, and she stood about 4 feet high, and Granny was made out of pumpkins and gourds and had a dress and hair and everything. Well, I was invited to actually go to Bozo in Chicago and was on the show.
Oh, nice.
This is a long time ago. So anyway, there was a tie-in to clowning.
I like it. It's good. Well done.
In fact, when you said Chicago, I knew Bozo would appear eventually.
Yeah.
Bozo was a very powerful effect on a lot of Chicago kids.
Yeah.
Really, for a lot of years. Yeah.
I mean, that midday for years and years of my early life was was part of our life, right? Back when there wasn't a whole lot of options, and we all watched and experienced many of the same things every day versus today where we're so fragmented with everything that we do. Yeah. But so anyway, just thinking about that brings back some pretty cool memories. Mom and Dad had some pictures of some of that time that they showed me here not too long ago, and it's just like, wow, where has the time gone, you know? So very cool. So I assume you guys you started out in the Dallas ISD, I assume, or that general area. How far ranging do you guys go with your performances these days? Who's kind of the ideal client or customer or school that you would work with? And maybe some other specifics about, the show as far as duration, size, group.
Yeah. So I met a lot of people at this recent Texas PTA launch. And what we've tried to do when we're going out of the Dallas area is cluster things together, so last year we went to Abilene. They put together like 6 schools. So we went to Abilene and we spent 3 days there, and we put it together so we could, would make it make sense with the travel and having to have a hotel and all of that stuff. And so I think that just based on my conversations with people, I think that's what our goal will be, is to try to, because it seemed like I know there's a lot of places in Houston and Austin and San Antonio. Those seem to be the main other 3 areas that there is stuff. And so we haven't crossed that bridge exactly what that travel cost is and how we do that. But that certainly, hopefully, will be a bridge that we have to cross pretty soon and figure that out. And I all the people that I spoke to, I said, we'll develop this together, because I think that what our shows have to offer are really great for kids in schools, and it's just a good way to learn their material.
Yeah, I think a lot of the bigger metropolitan areas, sometimes they get a lot more than some of the other areas, just because, an artist needs to live in an area that can support him. And however, Abilene really kind of jumped out of their socks when they saw our show, because they just hadn't seen another approach to science and math, and I don't think people really understand how to put together the fact that what does circus arts have to do with science, until you stop and then you visualize all of the moving parts and the way things run like a very well honed machine. And that's what a circus has to be. And they rely on good physics and good science to make that all happen, and to be able to continuously recreate their own world wherever they go. And that takes a lot of planning and a lot of science, a lot of math, and it's a great story of how that works. And so I think we bring something that's a little bit mystical. Circus, clowning, and when they see us put the two things together, and all of a sudden you see the teachers go, oh, and the kids are already engaged. And number one, our theory is, if we can engage an audience, whatever information we feed them, it's gonna come to them in a different way than someone telling them this is the way it works, instead of someone showing them, getting them curious, engaging them, finding a laugh about it, and then hitting them with the knowledge that, you know what that is? Oh, that's a simple machine. You've probably used that. You ever been to a birthday party with a piñata? That's a pulley system. You've done this already. It's in your everyday life. So basically, we're normalizing all of these things that seem so scary in a textbook, or when a teacher says you got to know this by Friday, and we're bringing in another aspect. And I think I'm good at putting these together because I was a poor student. I was one of the kids who didn't get it. And I didn't get it until I became an adult and learned my own method. I had learning disabilities. I was dyslexic. They didn't know what that was when I was a kid. I just knew I had trouble learning. And so I found a way that it was accessible for me. And I'm hoping that makes it accessible for other kids that have not really figured out, how do I grasp onto this science stuff?
I hired a couple of young guys several years ago to begin writing comic books, because with our sticker vending machines, my company, School Spirit Vending, I saw it as a way to encourage kids to read, because when I was growing up, I read comic books, and that's what inspired me to become a lifelong reader. So we got invited by a school up in Fort Collins, Colorado, to come up and do a symposium, myself and the writer and the artist. And we did a symposium with the middle school kids one night and their parents for a couple hours. And then we did 2 comic book readings for the elementary level the next day at 2 different schools. And to see the kids' eyes light up, and to have teachers come up, and I know you guys have had the same experience over and over again, and to have teachers come up afterwards and say, you know what? I have never seen the kids that quiet in my life. Or, Johnny, I have never been able to reach him. And I think for the first time he was reached today. Thank you for coming. Yeah. And I know you guys see that, mm-hmm. because you come at this learning from such a different angle that it allows some kids to understand who couldn't otherwise.
Right. And I think a lot of it is, kids, they look at a piece of knowledge that is just not that just is never going to. They start asking themselves, why do I even need to know this stuff? This doesn't relate to me. And I mean, part of our approach is, yeah, it does. Everything we do in our show are things that are accessible. We don't use fancy things in our show. They're things I find around my house so that they're familiar with. A bucket, and a pool cue, simple things. And taking away that mystery of this is for the smart kids and turning it into, oh, this is for any kid. This is fun, that fun factor. And kids like to be engaged, and kids like to see authority figures. And we have a partnership, and we have my partner, Tiffany, she relates really well to the students. She's the anarchist. I become more of the teacher. And so when she wins our little comic battles, it empowers them because they see the little guy winning all of these little battles with us and having a voice. And I'm hoping that they see that, sure, the teacher is the authoritarian and you've got principles and structures. We need that. At the same time, they're people and they can have fun too. Everyone can have fun. And even as the smart guy, supposedly, even though she's smarter than I am, it's fun for me to have her win these things. And it's fun for me to show, even though I lost that comic battle, I enjoyed the journey.
Does she let you win anytime?
No.
No.
You're a winner.
No. Yeah.
You have a great partner. You must be a winner.
Yeah. No, we have lovely chemistry. It's, partnerships are all about chemistry.
So what's the ideal size group for you guys? Do you really need to focus in on one grade, or do you do larger assemblies where potentially entire schools are together? Talk a little bit about that.
We do both of that. And I think some of our programs, the science show is great. You can fill the auditorium and you can have 4-year-olds and 11-year-old. You can go all the way. And we do that quite a lot. It's the whole school.
With math gets a little trickier because math is so specific grade level as to what they're. So in that case, we really encourage teachers to break down. And if we're going to have second or third, fourth, and fifth graders, that's fine. We can deal with that. We can have preschool, kindergarten, first, second. That's fine. We can deal with that because we have basically 2 math shows, one for the upper grades, one for the lower. With the science, we can teach all the physical sciences. All we do is we change the vocabulary a little bit, and we may not go as far. An example being, in a math show, for the younger kids, we'll do perimeter, because I'm doing a new trick today that I've never done before, but I need so much space. And so we'll measure it. And we will do perimeter. As we get to older, then we go to area and square feet and circumference. And, we go, so we do the same things in our show. It's just our vocabulary and how far we go with the specific areas will change depending on the age level.
So if somebody who's listening has a desire to find out more about you guys and potentially reach out and book you guys, how can they reach out to you? How far out are you normally doing, booking, those types of details?
Yeah. So our website is laughterleague.org, just the word laughter and league together.org. And on that website, I think there's just a place to send an email. There's also information about our programs there too. And, we will book for the entire, before I talked to you, I booked someone for March. But we're booked the whole school year. And, there are certain times when you could call me and say, can you come tomorrow? And I would say, sure. And other times when it's like, man, we're already booked. There's certain pockets of time, May is a really busy month so people book early for that because it's in and around the testing and at the end of school. But the other thing too is that we have a second team that does shows for us as well. And so we started doing that a couple of years ago, and that's, beginning to really pay off because we need like certain weeks in May. There's no way we could do all of it. So we have another team who are also fellow performers. We do a lot of stuff with them, and we send them out too. And we just kind of spread the work around that way. So I think I would encourage anybody who wants to book us to just call and talk about dates. That would be my thing.
And if we have some advance notice, I mean, we're already booked in the Abilene date. They rebooked us right after we did our last show there for next January. So if we have this kind of advance notice and someone out in that part of the state would say, hey, I'd like some shows, then we would, with this much time, we could steer them into that January area. So if we're going out that way, we'll just keep going another hour to their town, whatever, and make it a little tour. And that makes it easier to do it. So time gives us that luxury. But I would say that the toughest time for us is we get very busy in the spring, that March, April, May. And all of a sudden, if you get a bad day and the school cancels, they reschedule for May. And so you get to May, and that becomes a tough month because everybody has rescheduled for the entire winter, spring. Anytime that they had a problem, they book it in May. And so that does clog up. But the fall is kind of a lighter season for the school bookings because they've just gotten back to school and they really haven't started scheduling. So we do find a lot of availability in October, November, and then December starts booking a lot of, and then once we get to the winter into the spring, that's really the crazy season.
Yep.
So Dick, right?
Yes.
Dick, it says here you've been on Letterman, you were on the Jay Leno show, the Rosie O'Donnell show. I mean, guys, we got some real cred here. Not that Tiffany didn't have enough already. But
I got a master's degree. Come on.
There you go. Awesome. So what were you doing? Were you performing as a clown for some of that stuff or something completely different?
I did. I was in Los Angeles for 15 years, and I did a lot of clowning work, but a lot of it without makeup on. I do physical comedy and acting as a normal actor. Did a few sitcoms. I was a regular on an ABC late night show called Rick Dees Into the Night. And when I moved to New York, I did a Woody Allen film when I got there. And when I did two Jay Lenos, and I did one Letterman in New York. But again, using variety, that's as opposed to clowning, it's more variety entertainment, a little more stand-up-ish. I did a lot of stand-up, even though I would do basically my straight clown set. I did a lot of nightclubs with that. The thing about the TV and film career, and I pursued it pretty vigorously for about 15 years. And I did okay. I mean, I was a working actor. The problem is you have no control. There is absolutely, and you have to pretty much drop your life to go to an audition on the chance that you may then get a call back. And, and I played that game for a lot of years. And I finally got to the point where, I could have one year where I made a lot of money and the next year where I made no money. There's no, and so I kind of leaned back on my live entertainment. Even though I was still going out on auditions, I wanted something I could have a little more control. And so I started doing more clowning, doing more circuses, more festivals, more stand-up. Because I knew my life, I could look ahead of my schedule and say, I'm booked for a pretty good solid part of this year. I'm going to do okay. And then I would still go out on auditions, but I wasn't relying on my TV and film to pay the rent because you can't, because you never know. It's just up to somebody else. And you can be the best guy in the room and the producer can say, yeah, but I like the guy with the red shirt. Red is a better color for me. It's like,
So we didn't talk about this, but what are each of your stage names? Or do you have multiples depending on the show you're doing?
No, I'm Dick Monday. I'm always Dick Monday. And when I'm a clown, I'm Monday.
Okay. And then what about you, Tiffany?
I don't know. Something happened many years ago. Slappy. So I go by Slappy.
So we are Slappy and Monday.
You're Dr. Slappy?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Tiffany Riley, a.k.a. Dr. Slappy, and Dick Monday, a.k.a. Monday. Thank you guys for joining us in the School Zone. Yeah. Once again, guys, if you're looking for an innovative and different way to educate your kids about reading and science and those types of things, man, check out the Laughter League at thelaughterleague.org, and book a time to get these guys out to your school before they get booked solid. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.